Oh yeah, we got just straight water here. Oh goodness. Oh, and it almost looks like I actually dropped the valve here because this valve head is completely gone. It's probably in the pan somewhere. It actually blasted through the cylinder liner there as well. So completely junk this block is. Hey guys, welcome back to Reignited. Now, as I'm filming this, it is January 1st, 2024, and I couldn't think of a better time to dive back into our twin-charged Magnum project. In this episode, we're gonna be tearing down that engine, find out exactly how bad I blew it up. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this project, let me give you a quick overview on this. Originally, the concept was, if you don't have the money for a hellcat, but you have some skills, could you build your own hellcat, what I call the poor man's hellcat, something a lot cheaper, but with similar performance to it. Now, honestly, after a year and a half of building this car, I don't really think I want to actually add up these receipts anymore of how much I have actually spent on this car, but I do think the potential is absolutely there. Now, I basically fabricated almost everything on this. This is a 2005 Dodge Magnum RT with the 5.7 Hemi, that's what it came with, but this is not the original engine anymore. This is a 2015 5.7 Hemi engine. And I fabricated a custom intake manifold so I could run this Eaton M112 blower on it. That is a blower from an 0304 Mustang Cobra. Now also, I fabricated a turbo kit so that I could run this massive 85mm turbo on here. Thus, it is twin charged. Now, as I said, it took me about a year and a half to put this whole thing together, but unfortunately, right when I got it running, I was in a bit of a pickle because I was trying to get this vehicle complete for a specific event that was happening, and I was having real trouble finding a tuner who would actually touch this thing and try to tune this thing properly. So I was attempting to tune it myself and I blew it up. All right, so guys, you know, I went ahead and deleted the MDS on this engine, so I have these plugs installed here, but I decided that for fuel mileage reasons, I'd really like to make this thing a 4-cylinder again. Check it out. Now, this happened with 1 week to go before the event. So I had some extra parts here. I thrashed, I pulled the engine out, pulled it completely apart, threw a new set of pistons in there, put it all back together again, made the tuning to what I thought was even more safe, and I made it down to the event. Now, I was going to the Redwood Rally, which is the very first West Coast drag and drive event. I was so excited to be there. And on the very first day, on the very first pass, I rolled into the burnout box, spun up the tires, and I absolutely obliterated this thing yet again with what I thought was extremely safe tuning. Now, needless to say, that was extremely disappointing. Now, I do need to make it clear that both of these engines that blew up, they were on the stock bottom end, stock pistons, rods, all of that. And one of my goals I had with this project was I wanted to prove that the Gen 3 Hemi had just as strong of a stock bottom end as, say, an LS engine. We all know what kind of power the LSs can make. Well, very clearly, I was wrong. I had so many people in the comments say, hey, those Hemi pistons are glass, just get rid of those. And I was like, no, if you tune these things properly, they can live just like the others. Well, clearly, that's not a hill I'm willing to die on anymore. They were right, I was wrong. These pistons are glass. They do not work in that kind of situation. So we are going to be making a significant amount of upgrades with the next setup that's going in this thing, but we'll get to that a little bit later. For right now, let's go ahead and start tearing this thing down and find out just how bad the carnage is. Now, when it comes to the actual engine itself, the long block assembly, I'm not too concerned about whatever has happened inside there because really the only parts I'm actually going to use from the long block are going to be the lifters themselves. Other than that, it's all a throwaway. I've got a different engine entirely that's going to go in this thing. However, I'm really hoping I did not damage either the supercharger or the turbocharger from the shrapnel that was kind of flying around in there when this engine grenaded. If both those items are okay, I'm going to be a very happy man. If one or both of those items are not okay, I'm going to be a very sad man. All right, it was necessary to actually pull the front bumper off because we need access to our intercooler piping here. The only way to remove this intercooler piping is from down underneath, so we had to pull that front bumper off of there. But it just helps give us better access to some of the other stuff we need to do as well. Now, there are a few deficiencies that I do want to address about serviceability while working on this car, and one of those is that the only way to actually remove the belt, the serpentine belt from this vehicle, is from underneath, unless you actually pull the fan assembly from off the radiator. Certainly not ideal. That's definitely something we're going to address as I put this thing back together again. All right, we're gonna go ahead and pull the downpipe off here, off the turbo. We're gonna get our first look at the turbine wheel back here, see if there's any physical damage to it. Now, of course, I'm going to take this turbo all the way off, take it actually apart and do a couple of things to it. But this will be our first look to see if there's any major damage. Survey says it looks good. I'm not seeing any issues with it. Turbo still spins freely. No shaft plate. I think we're in good shape here. That is fantastic news, primarily because this turbo, they don't actually make it anymore. This is kind of their last of the stock that they had. So if there was damage to it, getting a different one, I'd have to modify a bunch of other stuff. So the fact that we can reuse this turbo, fantastic news. So that's at least one major component down. We're about ready to pull the supercharger off. It does spin freely, so I'm excited about that. But once we get this thing off, you'll see just how much debris is likely up in the intake manifold itself. Hopefully none of that made its way up into the supercharger. Let's pull it off and find out. Wow, what an absolute pain that was. I was trying to break this supercharger free from the intake manifold. As you guys saw, I used Mopar 3-bond sealer on there. That stuff is ridiculously strong. It's so strong now that this is the second time I've had to pull the supercharger off, and I'm really not sure that I'm going to use it again because it is just too strong. I think I may end up making a real gasket for this thing this time around because that's just way too much work. Now, hopefully, once I put this back together again, I won't have to take it off again, but as I've proven so far, you never know. So I think I'm gonna try to make a gasket for this thing next time because that was way too much. Okay, I finally got this thing broken free. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this thing off, take a look at the supercharger itself, see if there's any damage. Oh. There we go. Definitely a lot of oil up in here, but the lobes themselves look okay. I think we're gonna be just fine with this supercharger. Big sigh of relief there. We can keep using this thing, and we'll just have to clean out our intake manifold. I gotta show you guys what's in the intake manifold here. Clean that up, and we should be able to reuse that with no problems. Yes, quite a few bits inside the intake manifold here. One benefit of having built the intake the way I did is that it's very easy to clean it out, so that'll be no problem. We'll just clean this up and reuse it. One thing I did notice after I got the intake off is that cylinder 2 here is filled with water in there. So not a fantastic sign there. I'm kind of wondering if I broke into the cylinder wall on that cylinder. Again, not a big deal because I won't be reusing this engine, but that would be pretty interesting to find. So really fantastic news on being able to reuse both of my power adders. Now it's just a matter of tearing this engine down. Now, because it is locked up and I can't spin it over to get those torque converter bolts off, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the heads while it's in the vehicle, and we're gonna see if we got maybe a piston jammed up in there sideways. I'm gonna see if there's a way I could free up the engine enough to get it to turn over to take those torque converter bolts out so I can get this engine yanked out of there. So a lot of disassembly right here. I'll catch you guys up when we're about to pull off the cylinder heads. Okay, if I'm correct about having cracked a cylinder wall on this thing into the water jacket, we should see a fair amount of coolant come out here before we actually get any oil. Let's see what we find. Oh yeah, we got just straight water here. Oh goodness. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Nothing but coolant, or in this case water. Wow. Hey, there's some oil. Milkshake. That's delicious. Well, if I needed any more evidence that this engine is completely junk, that's pretty much it. This entire engine is trashed. All right, we're finally at that time where we're gonna pull the cylinder heads off and take a look. I only found one real problem child so far, and that's cylinder number 2. This is the intake push rod. It's pretty bent up. But last time when I destroyed the pistons, I didn't harm any of the push rods on that time, just the pistons came apart. So it'll be interesting to see what we find. Like I said, cylinder 2 so far is our problem child. Let's pull these let's pull these cylinder heads off and take a look. Of course. Well, I do believe something is missing here. Snap the end of the piston clean off of the rod there. And yeah, this cylinder is completely torched. Surprisingly though, the other pistons don't look that bad. I'm not seeing any broken ring lands on any of those just yet. It'll be interesting to see what the other side looks like. And it almost looks like I actually dropped the valve here because this valve head is completely gone. It's probably in the pan somewhere, snapped off, but it's impossible to say because if that piston tore off of there, then essentially it could have just smashed the valve, ripped the head off, and caused all sorts of problems. But it's interesting that the problem seems to be relegated to cylinder number 2 only. Hey, I did actually find my exhaust valve down here in the bottom of the pan. This thing is absolutely mangled. Oh man. Yeah, this is really interesting. All of the pistons on this side are just fine. There's no signs of any broken ring lands or anything like that. So really just something failed there in cylinder number 2. I'm not sure if it's a valve that broke off or if it was a piston failure. All right, definitely expecting to find some carnage in here. I hear it rattling around here. What's left of my piston, I imagine, for cylinder number 2. Oh yeah. Let's take a look. Oh my God. Yes. Little bit of damage there. Found my number 2 piston. Yeah, I don't think it was going to survive. Well, I have to admit, I'm less confident now than I was about what exactly happened here. Now you can see this is my connecting rod for cylinder number 2, completely bent, twisted, and the end is torn off. Also, cylinder number 1, the connecting rod is bent in there. It's kind of hard to see, but that connecting rod is not straight anymore. All the rest of the cylinders are okay though. So I'm trying to figure out, this does not look like piston ringland failure. This looks like maybe just a failure of the connecting rod itself, or potentially ate that exhaust valve. That's the only other thing I can think of, is that that exhaust valve head snapped off, and that's what caused our catastrophic failure here. So not really clear as to what the answer is anymore. Unfortunately, in these situations, when you're coming in after the fact and there's just a mess of stuff everywhere, it's hard to tell what caused what and when. All right, I just want to show you guys, if I can here, the 2 areas where it actually broke through the cylinder lining there. That red marks there, that's actually a little bit of rust from where the coolant came through. And then right up there, it actually blasted through the cylinder liner there as well. So completely junk this block is, but again, a little bit tough to tell exactly what happened here. All right, now that we've got the engine torn down, we kind of know a little bit less than we did before, because it wasn't the failure that I thought it was. I thought we'd be seeing ringland failures like I did last time I blew it up, but this appears to have been a different scenario, and really tough to tell exactly what broke first on this thing. I have a broken exhaust valve, I have a completely destroyed piston, I have a torn connecting rod, got torn in half. No broken rod bolts though, so it wasn't a rod bolt failure on there. So yeah, questions abound on what exactly failed with this thing, but all of that's somewhat immaterial because pretty much all of this engine is getting tossed. We're getting that out of here. We're going to move on to our new engine. Now, what is our new engine, you ask? Well, it is a SRT 6.4 liter. Yes, we're going to up our displacement here. I already had a 6.4 liter engine, And there was a couple other reasons why I decided to go that route as well. The main reason is because the 6.4 crankshaft is a forged crank already, and then basically a forged bottom end, the piston and rod combo for a 6.4 was only about $150 more than it was for a 5.7. I had the 6.4 engine already, so I thought, why not do the upgrade now? So yes, we're getting an SRT 6.4 liter with piston and rod combination in there, a different camshaft, so several upgrades are going to happen. Now, it took a while to get to this point because I was waiting until I had almost all of the parts, because I didn't want this to be a long, drawn out process with months and months of work to get this back together again. This should be pretty straightforward as far as reassembling the engine and getting it ready to go back in. Now, there is a couple of mods that I did want to make that were just for serviceability stuff, but overall this should be a very quick process and the car should be back together and running again very shortly. Now, also too, in this phase, I am going to put a hood back on the vehicle. I know a lot of you guys were asking for that. I finally came up with an idea that I think I actually like, and so you guys are gonna have to stay tuned to watch and see what that is. But for now, you guys, I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time on Reignited.